My belief is that we are all racist. And now a lot of people, are you saying all white people? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying everyone's racist. And we have in all ways learned some level of white supremacy. Now people go, but what about black supremacy? It's not white kids that are drowning in shit in school toilets in South Africa. While you were a little black kid who's working his ass off to invent jazz, because that's all we let us do. The little white kid was in Rondebosch playing the triangle. Ding, well done, Jimmy. Ding, well done, Jimmy. Now get out there and run Investec.
Welcome to Colorful, a podcast where we paint our nails red, our lips red as well, and we talk all things culture, identity, and of course, systemic racism. I am Senamile Zungu, joined in studio today by my best friend, Mhlobo wam unjani?
Oh, Molo.
I thought I should just throw that in there since we're in Cape Town today.
We are shooting from Cape Town once again, and in studio with us is the multi-award-winning ventriloquist, political commentator. What I meant to say was political satirist, anthropologist, comedian, Conrad Koch. It is so good to have you in the studio with us today.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be here.
Welcome to Colorful.
Yeah.
We have been absolutely, we've been wanting to speak to you for a while, so we're so chuffed. We're not going to do the red nails thing again because once again, Stacey and I, sorry, neurodivergent brains, we forgot the nail polish.
Well, to be fair, we actually remembered the nail polish, but we forgot the nail polish remover, and we thought it wouldn't be fair to our guest to leave him on the road.
On the road,
one hand of red
nail polish. But Conrad, you're not here with Chester today.
No, because we're going to talk about the complexity of race. And I'm the author of the book when you talk to me. And so when you talk about race, we're talking about the author of the book instead of actually doing satire. When I sit with Chester Missing, so people who don't know me, I'm a political satirist, but what I'm famous for is a guy called Chester Missing who interviews politicians on TV and talks about social issues and so on, including race, is of course a massive part of that, on the internet and in our live shows. So obviously when Chester and I talk to each other, he's more like, he's a very progressive guy and I'm more like a centrist guy and he holds me to account. So it's got that kind of like a two friends talking conversation.
And I think that is so pertinent because when we all know that you have a master's in anthropology.
Yeah,
there are
ordered on the internet.
And we're going to get into that because I do think that has some bearing in how you approach your comedy and your satire. Yeah. But let's get a little bit of a backstory. Tell us a little bit more about you and your journey to where you are today.
So I grew up in Rondebosch, more or less in Cape Town, which is Rondebosch. Rondebosch. It's the kind of place, and then in my show on discussing race, it's the kind of place where you can see someone complain about the temperature of a cappuccino to a dude who lives in a shack. He said, is your cappuccino cold? No. Well, is your toilet on the inside? Yes. So footsack. And you don't, when I was born in 77, so they don't explain apartheid to you. Well, my mother did. She said, thank your lucky stars, you weren't born black in South Africa. And I was probably about 6 or 7. It was probably 1985 or something like that, which is, it sounds terrible, but it's also the truth. I mean, it's South Africa. And so while no one explained apartheid to me, where it was bad, but no one explains the details, and anthropology did that for me. So it's almost like an awakening. I was there during Truth and Reconciliation times. So I met people who were tortured by the apartheid states, and the dynamics of which people who were disenfranchised in South Africa was in quite a lot of detail explained to me. So that shaped me.
So I guess
the comedy side came from the College of Magic. So that there was in Lansdowne and Emma Maroon Road. And then I was there and I learned I was like a weird little kid and didn't like rugby, but I love like jokes and magic tricks and ventriloquism. And when we hit UCT, there was no comedy in South Africa in 1995 and 4. And when I started doing more clubs, there was nothing. There was some older people who had been doing it. And then suddenly we are creating gigs. So there was David Kyle, Kagiso, Riyadh, Stewart, and we all around, Tsepo Machale, and Mark was there, but more on his own. But we built this started building an audience and so on. So there was the language of what we do, because audiences shape what's sayable, right? So there's no black audience because there's no black middle class. And then you go to a black audience, but they're not really used to comedy in stand-up style. And so we kind of were like working out how to do this thing.
When you reflect on that and looking at the position of comedy in culture and in pop culture today, can you almost like believe it? Or do you look back and have a sense of pride that you and a bunch of other guys spent so much time in audiences that were so fragmented, really building a whole genre and integrating it so deeply into South African pop culture now?
It's great. It's amazing. I wouldn't say like I'm a lot essential than that, but I'm glad that it happened. I think we're all working together has created something cool. And what I like about a lot of stand-up is that we talk about issues. Like back in the day, we used to proper discuss: are we saying the right thing? Is this like, are we? What are we doing with this? An example is laughing at. I think we can talk more than about comedy here today, but like it was normal to do like a hack Afrikaans accent in your joke. That would like kind of laugh at Afrikaans identity, and the more you get, it's a bit like boereface. It's sort of laughing. The English came and they looked down on Afrikaans people as less than, a bit like what they did in the States with the Irish people and so on. So that drives up the racism that then in order to be included in the concept of whiteness, Afrikaans people had to accentuate their whiteness, and so you get this kind of hierarchy of whiteness with English-speaking South Africa, hello, how are you, at the top. So we sort of would stop doing those accents. So those sort of conversations, and then the idea of race within South African comedy and who we're laughing at is something we definitely engage with more than the music industry by miles, in my opinion. So that's comedy.
Oh, Conrad, it's so... What's this?
I don't know. This is showtime. But I think comedy, it just fits in within the culture of the place we're living in, and the conversation on racism and who has money, I think is a more important part of the conversation that grounds it less in what's it like to tell jokes as opposed to what is the world we're telling jokes in, and how does the South African story and who has money in this country shape what is sayable and who says what.
I'd love to touch on that a bit more, because comedy, ideally, certainly in the context that we find ourselves today, is a wonderful place to mirror society in a way that is, in a way that can resonate without it being personally affronting. So we can go back once we've seen the comedy and reflect on why it was funny, and that's beautiful. That's, I think, the kind of way that we can work towards something like nation building. But when you say that people with money are shaping what comedy looks like, that makes me quite fearful.
Comedy isn't this wonderful, people have this idea, it's satire or it's comedy, it's just coming together. But that's not actually true. Mm-hmm. So comedy is, humor is an attack. It's laughter. In fact, there's a guy who wrote a book on laughter called Robert Provine. The book's called Laughter, and it's to discuss the history of laughter. It's a form of a growl, like a dog growling. And it's very much how we define social space. So in your social interactions with people, who's funny to you is a product of social norms that you learned growing up. Mm. So who sounds funny? That's why you'll listen to a South African advert, and they'll make the middle-class sounding accent the one that we trust, the one that delivers the payload, the one that reads the terms and conditions. It's less so these days, but it's still there. And the accent we all laugh at is the working class person. It's the person of color. Yeah. And generally in South Africa, the more working class you are, the more your accent stands out as less centralized, as less middle class, as less white, as less English speaking. And so there's definitely a hierarchy of what we find funny. And unfortunately, comedy is a very powerful tool to reinforce those norms, and does most of the time. And TikTok is just full of people who will happily do a hack colored identity for you so you can laugh at these hilarious people, instead of realizing that you've never seen a CEO that sounds like a Gachi. If you know what a Gachi is, that's the guy who puts people in a taxi in Cape Town. You've never seen a CEO, even though a Gachi would be a much better airplane CEO, because think how many people he could get on to Safi. So it's from my race show. So the So the concept of, your trust and accent, that who you think is incredible and a human being is based on all these things in comedy, unfortunately, is very much a tool to reinforce the worst of our society, and is because of who is laughing in the room, which is why money comes into it. Because remember, if Jacaranda FM wants to sell ad space to Kubus, who has a furniture factory. Kubus doesn't want to hear anything about apartheid on Jacaranda FM, because if he hears it, he's going to pull his ads. Yeah. So Jacko and FM definitely won't let you do a conversation hard. And I've literally gone through this, a conversation on race, because they just don't want to offend their listeners. Because the middle class was white majority at 94, and black people have been introduced into this middle class one at a time. I don't have to explain this to you, I realize, but when you arrive at a workplace and 62% of senior management is still white and male, you've got to appeal to that person, which means changing your accent, changing your identity, not mentioning anything that's going to threaten them, definitely not mentioning who has land and who doesn't have land, that maybe Julius sometimes says true things. Maybe his attitude's problematic, but his things he's saying are not all wrong. So the fact that all that gets shaped by who has the money in the room and the leverage in the room means what we laugh at also gets shaped. And South African comedy at times definitely leans into what the clients want you to say. Because remember, the people with the power to buy the tickets are the people who we have to appeal to. Sorry.
So you just dropped some bars there. Like,
sorry to
no,
ruin the...
No, it's not ruining it. And I think it touches on something that it's really difficult to explain these concepts in a way sometimes that is accessible or digestible. Yeah. And we sort of grapple with this as well. Yeah. We have professional careers. Yeah. We are sitting here. We know how we've gone, what happens behind the scenes when we're going to approach a topic like this. It's mental gymnastics like you wouldn't believe. Yeah.
Well, you probably would.
Yeah,
I would believe. I definitely would believe. Yeah.
You would believe. But I mean, if we're saying race or how we view races and what we, based on who's funny, you're touching on a concept of like social constructivism, right? So race, a social construct. How do you explain that to people? If people can say, okay, well, race is a social construct, then that means, but the consequences of race.
I literally wrote this joke. So I have the joke for this. Because I get it.
Yay, a joke.
I have the joke for I did a show on racism.
Yeah.
Because my belief is that we are all racist. And now a lot of people are you saying all white people? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying everyone's racist. And we have in all ways learned some level of white supremacy. Now people go, but what about black supremacy? It's not white kids that are drowning in shit in school toilets in South Africa. I just chatted to Akolini Notuwala, who's the from Social Justice Coalition, who described for my own podcast, Chester's podcast, how a child in Kailichu fell in a drain and drowned because the drain wasn't covered. And 2 hours later, the DA came and fixed the drain because this is what happens. It's only black people experiencing this. So the concept of race, so Chester's explanation to me, when me being the white guy of the show, is about I start out, I say, I'm not racist. I have an award from Ahmed Katrada for fighting racism, which I do. Yeah. And then it ends with me going, okay, hello, my name is Conrad, and I'm a racist. So that's the arc. And Chester's core on this issue is race doesn't exist, but racism does. So I go, there's no such thing. Well, if you're watching an Olympic race and there's one white guy, I name black guys, who's putting their money on the white guy? Nobody. Not even Nelson Mandela, the least racist guy in history, is putting his money on the black guy. But racism exists, and that has affected opportunities, which means that's affected what people do. So who's made better music, black people or white people? Black people in jazz, hip hop, blues, R&B, soul. They invented rock music too, and then white people stole it. The last white guy to invent his own kind of music was Beethoven, and he was deaf. So in other words, does race now not exist? No, it is opportunity. Yeah. And so and his things, well, you were a little black kid who's working his ass off to invent jazz because that's all we let us do. The little white kid was in Rondebosch playing the triangle. Ding, well done, Jimmy. Ding, well done, Jimmy. Now get out there and run Investec.
Run Investec.
That's South Africa.
Oh my goodness.
They're so good at dancing. It's all you let them do. They can't swim. You didn't let them go to the beach. It's got nothing to do with race, everything to do with opportunity. You racist.
So damn loud.
Yeah.
And the absolute worst. Well, I worked really hard to get where I am today. Yeah, doesn't everybody work hard?
We're all working hard. The black people getting up 4 a.m, catching 3 different types of transport. We're all working hard. My parents struggled. They would have struggled hard. So they struggle with such a basic concept. The concept of a sliding scale seems to be something people just don't.
I have 2 questions, but I need to ask the first one first, which is how is that kind of message received when you're giving your comedy shows by white people? How is that message received?
if they're the people who come to my shows, it's received well. But remember, who comes to my shows is already a bit on board because I've made it quite loud, which obviously affects my income because there's a big portion of white South Africa that just doesn't want anything to do with me. Often quite unfairly, because if you come to my show, you'll enjoy it. There's a talking dinosaur.
I was there last week. It's amazing.
It's got nothing to do with 90%. It's got nothing to do with race, because you just can't talk about race all the time. And it would be weird to do that as a white South African making your money out of, you got to have a line where you don't talk about it. The truth is that most white South Africans are more aware of racism than even your most progressive British people, because they're around people of color on a level that they're just unavoidable.
Yeah.
Like the joke, in a joke about some of my best friends are black, or I don't see color. Those concepts as part of our culture. In the UK, they are less aware of some of those dynamics, of the moments at which racism happens, and see it as something far away. So I did the show on racism, where I took the show that was super dynamic. Yes, white South Africans will often freeze up because unfortunately our leaders failed us and didn't, like Helen Zudder. You should have spoken about privilege, man. Explain what apartheid gave to people of color. Yeah. That doesn't mean that you don't have to argue with BE. But just establish that the people in the shacks are not there because they're lazy. Because if you don't, you're establishing this idea of white supremacy, that we are better off because we're better instead of because the system put us there. So the problem is that when they hear this, it's very challenging to white people, because it's a reconstruction of our identity, that we're not these amazingly skilled people as much as we think. We still got skills, but be honest about how the differential happened. And the problem is that in the show, you're making them renegotiate their whole identity. So often some white people will struggle with it. If there's full of white people who've had shows where they just go quiet and it becomes a TED talk. And then I did my show in the UK on race at the Edinburgh Festival.
Was it bad?
It was, on the weeknights where I had progressive, like someone who's a proper progressive, an author or something from London, killed. 3 people of color from South Africa, or just white South Africans who kind of aware, killed. But the moment the weekend arrived, and it was very nice British people, like I remember a sheep farmer from Yorkshire, because I asked them what they do. So he has no idea that colonialism, the idea of Australia Day. I've got a very simple joke about Australia Day. They celebrate the day they colonized Australia, which is like, that's like phoning someone every year. After stealing their car, you steal their car and you phone them every year to remind them you've got the car. Hello, yeah, we still got it. It's so evil. But they see Australians as these other people. It's like, you are the Australians. They're not other people. It's you. Why do you think we got Australians? And it's the same economic system, which is why, America right now is an extension of British colonialism, and look what's happening in the Middle East right now. So, how do you take a piece of land and give it to a group of people just willy-nilly? And then the people living there must do what? The British don't have the right to give land. That's just not okay. It doesn't mean that things shouldn't exist, etc. Yeah. What I'm just saying is the moral dynamic is problematic on a simple level like that. And so they're not, the conversation isn't, the media system and the systems of what is normal. There's a philosopher, there's an author you guys will know about called Michel Foucault. He's a social scientist, and he's got a book called The Archaeology of Knowledge, which is about what is sayable in an environment, right? In one room, it's completely sayable to say white people benefited from apartheid. If you say that on Cape Talk, there's a significant chunk of people who act like you have now been radically racist against white people. And that was the whole point of apartheid. What do you think's going on? It's not saying you're bad or evil, it didn't work, but that white people benefited, that's just a fact. So the problem is that where this becomes very difficult is I had a show on, in fact, in the work of actually getting people to get on board. And there's a few layers to this. So can I just keep talking?
Go ahead.
There's a few layers to this. The first layer is, why should we be talking about this? We are focusing on the past. So let's just get that out the way. The explanation for a society has to come from the entire picture of society. That's anthropologist's work, is you see all the social dynamics that lead us to being here. The ANC, there's lots of people in the ANC are stealing. They're terrible. They have screwed up. Did they screw up South Africa? That's nuts. Of course they didn't. They didn't pull people out their homes and force them into years of impoverishment. They didn't plan the pass laws. They didn't do all the stuff that forced the poverty in the first place. They didn't the colour bar, the hut tax, roads forcing people to become hewers of wood and bearers of water. So the problem is that in order to analyze ANC, you have to analyze the power of wealth and white South Africa and, the economic systems that keep South Africa running. You have to nail that too. And then the social dynamics go with that my accent is seen as a more credible, real accent, a trustable accent, that I'm more likely to be respected by business leaders because of the way I sound and look, because I've the exact geography I went to Bishops in Rondebosch. I know exactly how to talk to them. I just sound like them. So you have to nail that if you're going to nail the ANC, because if you don't, you will lose most of the country, which is why the DA sits on 22% and cannot crack through that, because they don't understand that you have to talk a language of the whole country, that you have to be honest about what is just obvious to most South Africans.
Yeah.
And so where it becomes incredibly difficult on that front is that when you try to say, I create a show that's going to explain this, and I go through beat by beat. I explain the laws. I explain my life. There's a little kid playing with dollies for a living. Like, Mama, Daddy, I want to play with dolls for the rest of my life. The black kid did that in the 80s.
No.
I did.
Still now.
Still now. Exactly. Exactly. It's wild. Yeah. So what happens is we create a show, and I worked with the Conrad Foundation about getting the show out there, and some people are very progressive. Like, there's lots of progressive white people out there. It's not all white people that don't want to deal with this stuff. Most, I think, just wanted someone to lead. They just want someone to say, just help me understand. Yeah. Are you saying apartheid's my fault? What must I do? Like those questions there. And they ask, to me, what must I do? You don't ask the black person, just talk.
That's the thing, yeah.
So we try to create a show on this to explain it accessibly to anyone, from a school kid to an old lady. And we went and they sold it to schools. We tried to sell it to schools, and one or two schools it went with, but one school, a private school, I can't remember which one, but in KZN said, we can't get him in. No, it might make the white girls feel a bit uncomfortable. And it's like, who do you think's uncomfortable now?
Yeah.
So the idea of threatening this, the problem is the school governing bodies and the people with the power are mainly like the Model C schools, a whole lot of white ladies and guys. And so they will keep that conversation off the table at every turn. And so you end up with a place where even black people don't understand what apartheid did to them.
Yeah. Conrad, it's that, so the lack of being, or the discomfort that white people will struggle to sit with when you do expose these things. And also, it's very difficult to name those things. Like, for example, like the different accents, because people will have some level of cognitive dissonance or immediately disagree. And there is always that sort of plausible deniability. You comment a lot on politics, right? You say, you tell it like it is, on corruption on every level. And there is the sort of veiled criticism, which is like, yeah, but this government is corrupt, but it's laced with so many things that I can't even explain. It is a legitimate criticism, but I can't quite put to words what doesn't feel right about it, because you instinctively know, but someone is always going to deny. At what point, and I think probably what's happening right now with the rhetoric of genocide and everything like that is just this inability to sit with that discomfort, or watching yourself have like less political control or dominance. What will it take for white people, Stacey, this goes on to you, to sit with that discomfort? Is there anything that anyone can do?
And I think the question, Senna, we discuss this often. Why is it up to black people to teach white people what racism is when they created racism in the first place, and then to make it nice so that they don't feel uncomfortable, so that they're open enough to hearing what's said and sitting with that discomfort and owning it and being aware of it, and then being responsible for their behavior from here on and that kind of thing. And we haven't really arrived at an answer other than to say that what we're doing in this room is meant to create that exposure. And then it's up to them to sit with the discomfort and do something about it. No?
What's your take? You have some...
Nothing we do will ever... Just give up.
Yeah.
When I started doing this stuff, I started doing this stuff a long time ago, but where it really popped was, of course, if people don't know the story, was Chester Missing was Steve Hofmeyr on Twitter said, blacks are, I might have got this wrong, the exact wording, but it's close to this.
Hold on. I did my research.
In my book, blacks are the architects of apartheid.
apartheid.
Go figure.
Go figure.
Go figure. Like, now you must work out what this moron is saying. And then just the wind as well, and it just to reply to him, that is because you haven't graduated above books that you color in. But he doubled down on it on his Facebook post, and he kind of, and I'm paraphrasing, don't quote me on this, but he said that if no one wants to be around you, is it really their fault? And what his kind of premise was is black people are so unevolved. Who wants to be around them? Which is just astoundingly evil. It's just backwards, and it's just normalized in our culture. And then he was doing these gigs where he's being sponsored by corporate, like companies doing gigs that were sponsoring the gigs that he was on. And then I went and said, okay, company, I don't want to pick a fight with those companies again, but you can Google it.
Tag them,
Why are you standing by this guy? You know he's on you, and it's not like you didn't know that he says these things. He's been saying these things for years. This is his whole sell. And they were very reticent to just withdraw because it's a very wealthy markets that he talks to. And so holding them to account comes at a massive economic costs. I mean, to me, it's been, I'm very unlikely to get an ad or corporate endorsements. So that radically affects my income. There's a significant part. I mean, I haven't been able to get on Jacaranda FM in a decade because of exactly this kind of stuff. So it has a massive financial pushback. And the core problem of getting white people in the room, now why I'm saying all this stuff is at the time I was very much confronting the full right wing. They were proper coming for me. My wife got phoned and threatened by racists. She's a person of color getting phoned by white people threatened, which is completely because of a white guy's work. It's my work that's affecting. So it puts me in a very profoundly complicated position I don't like and I feel ashamed of. And it's at the time there wasn't, and my street address being put online and all that kind of thing, and there wasn't that much of well-known white people really speaking about this. Now there are far more. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the dial has shifted. The more crazy these Afrikaners are all dying, it's white people, it's a genocide. As soon as you do that, all the good Afrikaners, and there are tons of them, are like, no man. That don't be, even Johan Rupert's are going, Futsak, shut up. What are you saying? So the fact that even Johan Rupert is the wokest guy in the room is that they got enough rope to hang themselves with. And I think that it has shifted. It's just the problem is there can only be parody. You know, I once asked my dad, who is not, I mean, he's racist in the way all liberal kind of DA voting white dads are a bit racist. He just gets it a bit wrong and you have to explain it to him, and which doesn't mean he gets it right. But I said, Dad, have you ever had a black friend? He's panicking about the ANC and it's lockdown, and he doesn't normally think about these things. He's very intelligent, so he's an actuary, and he just thinks very logically. And I said, well, do you have any black people in your life to push the dial on what is normal to say? Because if you have black friends, this Chris Pappas, this guy in the DA guy in KZN, is amazing. He speaks Zulu because he hangs out with Zulu people. Not Helen Ziller style where she has someone she pays once a week to talk to her. She literally has that. And kudos to her because John Stevenson doesn't have that. And it's good that she did that. It sets an example. So respect to her for that. But Chris has black friends. I hang out with my if I do something weird, it's like being racist when you have black friends is like farting in the room. Like, what are you doing, man? Why are you? This is weird behavior. So the problem is until black people have the economic power to properly push back against the white people doing weird stuff, it cannot change. And as they do get that power, with more middle-class black people coming through the ranks, it'll suddenly, what's sayable starts changing. The only problem we've got is a lot of black South Africans who are middle class have kind of just joined in on the apartheid. So instead of changing it, they're just part of the conversation. Yeah,
it's just, I think from a black perspective, and as someone who has had to assimilate, you sort of sit with massive, and I know that a lot of middle-class black South Africans feel this way, a massive sort of identity thing, which is very, very difficult to deconstruct. But once, even if you do acknowledge it, it again comes at what? An economic cost. So there is massive cognitive dissonance. There is a whole bunch of black middle-class South Africans that have to sort of disconnect. It's an out-of-body experience that I cannot even begin to describe. Imagine a lot of what your daily life looks like is navigating racism like absolutely everywhere. And then also being the one that has the sort of survivor's guilt or being a better off. Or, you realize that the majority of people that look like you are not getting access to those opportunities. So what, you kick rocks?
Yeah.
It's very, very complex. So that's a whole other dynamic, is the class sort of consciousness and as Black people and the growing middle class gains prominence, I wonder if we can truly reckon with those things as well. So our popular rhetoric can also start to take shape a little bit, even amongst us. Very, very complex. Lots of psychological elements when we talk about race and identity. It is absolutely massive to unpack. Yeah.
And it's so big. Just coming back to the point about white South Africans and feeling under attack and feeling discomforted. It's entirely because you're questioning identity. And that is so deep. And yet so important.
Yeah.
But if you don't see, as a white South African, if you don't see the need, then it's not going to happen, and you're not going to have that identity question, because it has to come from your side.
Yeah.
The acceptance.
Yeah.
Here's a question. I've been quite open about this on the show, is that my realization of the dynamics of race and power only really happened for me, recently.
Yeah, it was not long ago.
Not many years ago. And for that, I'm quite shameful. Like, I really look back and I want to die. I actually want to die. Sometimes when I think about, Senna and I are generations apart, but when I think about who I was at Rhodes, you also say that Senna also went to Rhodes, but way after me.
Rhodes.
Yeah. And I just think about myself. I remember there was a hall where we used to write our exams. It was freezing. My hands were melons, so my hands were always like shaking like this. And I remember the one morning I sat down and it was exams and it was packed. I don't know, that Mellons hall can fit 800 people in it or something. It was so full. And I thought, wow, I didn't know there were so many Black people at Rhodes. It was just, but I didn't even think about that thought. I was just like, oh, look at that, so many Black people. I don't see them because I'm out jawling and having a great time. And they're paying for their education and studying the hell out of it, because there's 100 people they're going to now look after as a result and lift themselves out of poverty and the entire system that people like me created. Anyway, I digress. The point is, I came to that realization later in life. When was your moment, or was it not that? Was it something you grew up with understanding?
No, I didn't grow up understanding it. The fingers were pointed, not the fingers were, but the signs were there, like my mom saying, just thank your lucky stars.
Yes.
But it was definitely studying social anthropology at UCT in the mid-90s to late 90s. That meeting Truth and Reconciliation commissioners and having some of it explained to me. Then doing a master's degree, I already had the layering there. Plus, I was around people of color a lot, and I think that makes a huge difference. Riyadh Musa comes from a struggle family. Stuart Taylor's a very progressive. Kagiso Lediga and the Lediga family are very progressive. Loiso Gola. These are the people I was around. So it's very hard to stay in the environment and not pick up something. So I think just osmosis from what we do. I was also bullied as a kid, so I've never really fitted, even though I was like really, you can imagine, I'm just odd. So, at a school like Bishop's, I didn't fit in at all. And so I already felt kind of not part of a system. So when I understood a larger system, I kind of identified with the idea of not feeling part of a system. That being said, they're layers. So doing a master's degree in social anthropology, focusing on the micropolitics of what you're describing and chatting to tons of people of color about their experience in banking, like old ladies who had to come in a different entrance, colored aunties who had to come in a different entrance. They literally want you to call them aunties, and some trope I'm throwing them. They said you must call me aunties.
Yeah.
They couldn't become managers. They weren't allowed to use a computer. They had to come in a back entrance. And now they got young people of color coming in who now have who are CAs with degrees, and there's a tension.
Yeah.
The white establishment's still there, still enforcing that system, but there's this complicated negotiation of identity identity. So that kind of more complex stuff, plus really getting into missionary writing on the formation of race and identity in South Africa, how Zulu became Zulu, how we established South Africa as a country, the actual dynamics of it. So all of that came together. So it's called post-structuralist feminism, if you want to get dorky about it. But the real conversation of the sort of proper feminist writing on this stuff really reshaped me to have a little bit more ammo in how I do it. Yeah. So layers, sorry.
I actually also think I always say this as well. So when we studied different things in politics, we were just discussing, you studied sociology. I mean, I studied politics, but for me, I never take for granted how doing that deep academic learning on identity helped me put words to experiences. Yeah. And then, but it's also very privileged. It's a very privileged position to be in. Yeah. So you always sit there with that sort of, and that's what you said about knowledge and power, but who gets to access it, who gets to disseminate it, so layered. But I do think that having literally reading up and questioning the world that you've been presented at, and then beginning to deconstruct that is so important. I wonder, do you think we do a good job as like just right now, there's so much going on in the world about identity. As soon as you speak about identity, you're the woke squad. But literally everything, so much of our being and so much of how we act is shaped by how we construct our identity. Do you think we could do a good enough job of having conversations around identity now in a more accessible way that's not so academic, or like you're an academic?
Yeah, well, I mean, my actual experience was thinking as you were talking is that, all me studying did is just make me South African. So in other words, my opinion is that, most of my fans, and it's an honor, but it's also a struggle because they're very poor. They are Uber drivers. They live in shacks. They are poor people. It's the waiter at the restaurant who'll know I am, not the person sitting in the restaurant. And these guys know the stuff. They don't need to do a master's degree in anthropology to know that accent, culture, etc. shape their lives. So they can often go, yeah, what you can say. So I think that the problem is that the first problem is that I think that the Western conversation on social politics is not what's happening in South Africa, and is being grabbed on as like, we're part of this. Helen Ziller, we're part of this. Anti-trans. South Africans, it's not the same place. Yeah. We live in a place where even white people have been pushed back at some level. Yeah. It's very complicated. We have a whole wing called MK, which is basically Republicans who are black.
Zulu nationalism.
Zulu nationalism, patriarchy, pretending to be progressive social politics. So we have this incredibly complex place that the Western model of this conversation doesn't work in.
Wow.
Which doesn't mean that some of it isn't relevant, but it's complex. And I do think there's a place in which we are getting it right in a level that they come nowhere close to, particularly when it comes to race, is that we do have more rigorous conversations than they would have. In the Western conversation on race it's very for them.
So simplistic.
It's very simplistic, and it's very much for there. And I get it. They have, and they're not separate. I mean, Robin DiAngelo and her books on white fragility are very relevant here, but there are gaps in that we are 92% of this country is people of color. Mm-hmm. So it is a different conversation about what needs to be normalized.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Wow.
It's fun. It's fun. People. It can be fun. It's just a culturally appropriated the word Gqeberha, because it doesn't. It's not the ANC's mistake with the word Gqeberha. It doesn't have this like deep, meaningful. Don't touch us, Gqeberha, so you can play with it. So he just became everything's a Gqeberha. It's a love word, Gqeberha. Show me your Gqeberha. Gqeberha me harder. You are my Gqeberhas. Ooh, Gqeberha. So he just said it for years. He just kept saying Gqeberha. He just used this word in the most obscene, silly, funny friends. Everyone's, Gqeberha, what's going on? Gqeberha me harder.
Gqeberha with you.
Gqeberha with you, yeah. It just became a thing, to the point that I'll stand there on filming content on Santon Drive there by the Rosebank, by the, whatever it's called. What's it, the Rosebank police station? Rosebank car train station. What's that? What's it? Not Jan Smuts, the other one. Anyway.
I should know. But
the right by the Rosebank Mall, the one goes past the mall. But he's standing there filming content, Oxford Street. He's standing by Oxford Street, and a car that looks a lot like it's an Uber will stop, the window wind down, Gqeberha! And then keep vying. those guys know what's going on in South Africa. They understand our political economy because they have to know.
Yeah,
the problem with white South Africans is often we don't have to know even the most basic information on who's in charge of the country. And they only arrive when someone's corrupt instead of going, hey man, this corruption existed in apartheid.
Yeah.
This is not new corruption. We put the ANC in jail for most of their lives and stopped any black political movements from developing. So don't complain that there's no good option other than the ANC because we can criticize them. No, we're not complain. But don't be arrogant about it because you benefited from the exact system that gave us the ANC. Yeah. And if you do that, you will defeat the ANC. And how do I know that? Because I've told Gwede Mantashe that Luthuli House is an old age home for corrupt guys to his face in Luthuli House. They can't beat you. I had shouting matches with Mbuyisi and Lozi. You can't. If I'm willing to deal with my racism, there's nothing to get me on. And because they keep fighting about dealing with apartheid, they give the corrupt dudes the ammunition they need to ignore you.
Yeah.
You're helping them. When you go, I didn't benefit from apartheid, you've just helped them.
Just helped them, yeah.
Yeah.
Entirely true, yeah. Entirely true. You've got a bit of a game.
I do.
What's the game?
We want to play a game.
Okay.
But
give
honestly,
the land back.
No.
That would be a good game. I wish
It's
we
like
could be that
Monopoly,
effective.
but for real life.
We want to play a game.
I do a thing these days. I've got a new thing I do. I stand outside white people's houses I don't like, and then I just tell whatever black guy who walks past that I've realized my faults and he can have it.
How does that work out for you?
I just ran. I ran. I have no idea what there is. No, I'm joking. I've never done it, but I will.
Yeah. But Conrad, I want to play a game. I know that, politics is hectic right now. You and I were speaking offline. There's crazy things that are happening right now. The world seems like an increasingly hostile place. And I think, again, I mean, as you said, we can lean on the humor. Sometimes the humor can reinforce exactly what we're calling out as problematic.
But to be clear on that, just so we understand, it can work in the exact opposite direction. Yeah. And when we do that, we create a space where real conversations can happen. Yeah. So it's about awareness.
Yeah, it's about awareness. Okay, so I'm going to close this off, but we're going to play this game. And South Africa is so crazy. Like, you know this. I mean, you go around telling, how do you even begin to describe to an international audience just how we are wild, okay? So, but we're also exactly, healthy debate, awareness is all good
Which is why, sorry to interrupt, but it's why when Ramaphosa sat there and everyone thought, Trump's going to get him, it's like, you don't know what this guy's
You don't know what he's dealt with.
The whole of macro. We took the whole macro. He's not going to be scared of a piece of paper.
He was unfazed with his dim the lights.
That's what made my joke in my show. That's what made him comfortable. Turn the lights off and Ramaphosa feels like he's at home.
Feels comfortable.
Do we live? I'm going to give you these scenarios, right? And you need to tell me if you think they could happen in a healthy democracy.
Yeah.
Or they're absolutely delusional. Okay?
So what's the answer?
Cool.
Do you just say delusional?
So you say delusional democracy.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Easy one. Is this delusional or would it be democracy if Donald Trump and Elon Musk made up and then started a podcast called Truth X, to be specific?
I mean, it's democracy, technically.
So it could happen?
It could happen.
Could happen?
Yeah, it could happen. Trump can do anything for money.
Oh, gosh, he'll do it. But also nothing it does surprises me anymore. Does this mean we're becoming desensitized?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That then scares me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Conversation.
That's literally what Obama, more or less what Obama said, is that we have so many crazy things going on. He didn't use these words. That we just become, it's another crazy thing.
It's just another crazy thing. Okay, cool. Two best friends with a mic and a podcast about racism actually make a dent in how South Africans engage with race and privilege.
Democracy! Definitely can happen. Let's go.
Yeah, we're not doing
Amandla. Asijiki.
Asijiki siyaphambili. Okay, cool. Okay, Chester Missing is appointed as Minister of Arts and Culture. Would this be delusional with democracy?
It's democracy. There's already a puppet in the job.
Oh, wow. That was so quick. Well done.
Burn.
Well done.
It could happen.
I have a picture of Gaten McKenzie, video of Gaten McKenzie giving Chester his sunglasses. So it's definitely...
I actually did see that. I saw that.
It's so fun. Gaten's fans are proper like a cult. They are really passionate about him. And then he will destroy you. And you meet him and he's like so friendly and it's nothing, it's silly.
It's absolutely. Do you see Liam Jacobs joined? Well, of course you did, but I don't know if you know TikTok.
Yes, of
MP,
course. It's wild. He did dive the next day. I'm like, I'm out of here. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
You political slut.
I actually wouldn't have believed. Like, is that democracy or absolute anything can happen?
No, he said the DA is using
They've
me.
been using him the whole
It's
time.
Parliament. Everybody's being used. That's what it is. It's a big user. It's ridiculous.
Okay, last one for you. Would this be democracy or delulu? Gwede Mantashe drops a mixtape titled Load Shedding My Feelings featuring...
Sorry, no, definitely democracy. I can hear that. Talks like a diesel engine. I love it. You have to... Uncle Gweezy. He was our first big interview on Late Night News. And, it was such a wild moment in our story. It's like we go in. So now I've interviewed Musi Maimane, Ronald Lamola when Julius was on
When
edge.
they were, yeah.
Oh, no, they weren't. No, Julius had just been kicked out.
Of the youth league. Oh.
Yeah, it's just been, he wasn't suspended. He was suspended. I had a weird conversation with him then. He said, no, I can't come on your show because I don't want to be seen as a comedian. I was like, bro, you never stop cracking jokes.
Yeah.
But we do this interview with Gwede Mantashe, was amazing because now this opened the door for everyone. If the Secretary General of the ANC is going to do the interview, everyone can do the interview. So then but at the end of the interview, you have to get a signed consent form. And now I've got to convince Gwede Mantashe to sign a form beginning a release. No, the Secretary General of the ANC is never going to sign. You can't make the Secretary General of the ANC. It's like, no, and I'm stuck because I didn't have to phone Tam, who runs the Prente and all our things with Kagiso, and like Tam, Gwede Mantashe won't sign the form. He wants the phone. So I give my phone to Tam. Remember, she doesn't know that she's like, imagine you're sitting having coffee and suddenly the Secretary General of the ANC says, can you just say he'll do it? Meanwhile, Mandisi, his sidekick guy, very nice guy who set it up for us. He's like, oh, this guy, he just won't do anything. It was a crazy moment. I've had so many crazy moments. No, we had to make a plan. We had to get it. We had to use the fact that we just crowbarred. I've had so many crazy moments with him because he has actually got a great sense of humor outside of his political dynamics. I'm not saying it means he's fine. The ANC can definitely laugh at themselves, and that's because a lot of them were in the struggle, and you had to be kind of salt of the earth person. They're not all idiots. We get this one brush thing. Yeah. And the craziest moment for me with Gwede Mantashe was when Jacob Zuma lost and Ramaphosa came in at Nasrec. We'd been there filming with ENCA all day. Yeah. We were there in the room when it happened. And when the SOP 6 announced the results. And now it's 12:30 at night. I put Chester in the car because I'm tired, man. I want to go to bed, but we're going to come watch this historic moment. And I'm sitting there waiting, and they're all top 6 of the ANC. The whole world is watching. And he sees me and he goes, I was like, but I don't have Chester. You don't want me there. You want Chester. That would have been like a photo op. Escorting Chester to come stand on the stage. And I didn't have Chester.
Oh.
Imagine that photo.
That's amazing.
Some of you just went to stage anyway.
I can't do that. They know what they want. They don't want me.
They don't want you.
That is so
weird.
crazy.
Yeah. There's lots of those moments.
You've probably seen so many of them. I can't wait.
It's crazy.
You need to document those, by the way.
It's one of the craziest moments.
So you're getting a scoop here. There will be a
2,500, like 2,000 EFF fighters, their first rally, their first manifesto launch.
Back in 2014 or something. When was that? Yeah.
Proper, yeah. And there were 2,000 people. There were I don't know, 1,000 people there, but at least 2,000 people on this stairs. And they see Chester. I might get the Zulu wrong, but they sang that song, Uchesta yo. Is it Uchesta lo? Uchesta lo, abayazi yo.
Uchesta lo, abayazi yo.
Wow.
I did not know that.
It was crazy. It was really silly.
Okay, well, next challenge for you, MK Rally.
Oh, yeah, they're fine.
I've
done that.
Have you?
Yeah, no. As Jacob Zuma was arriving at court, it was a rally, but as they're arriving at court, People love Chester because he's accessible and he talks about these issues. As Jacob Zum's arriving, of course, Chester's shouting at Jacob Zum, "Guy, send us some money, uncle. The Guptas owe us some money. We're starving." And there's this group of MK guys, right, standing in a circle with the police, discussing how they're going to manage this and Chester goes up to them and got a crew. They're discussing with the police about him coming to the Constitutional Court because they're worried Msholozi will steal something while he's inside. And these uncles, the MK uncles are like getting a bit annoyed now. Like, and this one guy goes, can you go away? Can you go? And he pushes Chester's knees. But it's on camera, so it's just this uncle pushing Chester's knee. And then this younger, very sweet bro comes up, Chester, can you just humber. And then Chester goes, "Oh, that's nice. Can you massage it?" Okay. And then he massages Chester.
Oh gosh, can I ask?
So cute.
Do you ever think sometimes, because I've seen so many people
It's so
slapping
cute.
Chester,
They always
do
slap
you
Chester.
ever think
Until
I'm
Misa
gonna
smacks
touch
him.
the smoke? Someone like,
That him.
I mean, you're always next to
It's
Chester.
always friendly. It's always friendly. The only time it wasn't friendly was with Steve Hofmeyer's lawyer guy who grabbed him by his head and proper squashed his head. And it was probably just going, "Help, you're mugging a puppet." Because I don't realize that in a camera, you look like you're mugging a puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
look absolutely. I think those moments are the craziest. Everybody go check them out on YouTube. We are out of time.
We are. Conrad, thank you for bearing with us.
Yeah.
Bus. And thank you for coming to Colorful. I know that this is a crazy time in the world, so thank
it
you
is.
for lending your voice to this discussion.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
thank you for the work you guys are doing. This is really great and really progressive. And I'm excited that this podcast exists and everyone should watch it.
You heard it. Amanda, go back to you next time.
Yeah. Cheerio, Kabachas.